I don't know about all the other podcasts that you've listened to, but I know this one right here is a bold and unapologetic podcast that dives into the hottest and most controversial topics of our time. So from current events to deep life questions around money, education, health, tech, you name it, nothing is off the limits. So if you're an open-minded thinker like me who craves perspective shifts, thought-provoking debates and unfiltered truths, you're in the right place. So whether we leave you mind-blown, challenged, or completely rethinking your stance, one thing for sure is you won't walk away the same. If you're ready to break the normal curve, embrace unpopular opinions, and dive into the uncomfortable truths of our time, then welcome to Joanne on Air podcast. Hey fam, so it's the International Women's Day. And if you're a man and listening, please don't go away. Come in, welcome aboard. It is important that you concern yourself with issues around women and their wellness. Today's episode is one where I sit down with a lovely young lady who I met through a mutual friend. Before I tell you the story, guys, let me tell you a little interesting fact about me. Guys, you know how the women that came before us, our mothers, used to just exist like, you're pretty, sit, your husband speaks, you just... So lately, when I meet women who are beautiful and educated but still have a voice and are very articulate and audible and very confident, guys, I'm very stimulated and like, come, give me a hug. So today's guest is a lovely young lady who I think is very brilliant, and I cannot wait for you guys to hear from her. So we sat down and had a conversation around women, and as we celebrate this day, there's a couple of unpopular opinions in the pipeline today that we need to discuss. One is, has Women's Day become more of a symbolic day of celebration rather than an impactful day, to mean that are we doing just artwork? Corporate companies have artwork all over the place rather than actually going down to the grassroots in communities where women actually need help. Two, are we using Women's Day to sort of do more marketing and PR for women's struggle than actually celebrating the achievements women have to show in the different fields of work? I've also heard different people argue that modern feminism a lot of times contradicts itself. So the same women that are demanding for equality still expect traditional gender privileges, like take, for example, men paying for bills. But also we discuss, what does an empowered 21st century woman look like? This and more in today's episode of Joanne on Air. Hi Lenny, good morning.
Hi Joanne, good morning. How are you?
Fine, thank you. I appreciate you making the time.
Thank you. I know it's a busy time of the year. Especially at work, but yeah, I had to find time to have this conversation.
Okay. I want to get right to it. Women's Day is here. What's on your mind in regards to the day? I saw you talking about pads on your status the other day.
Yes.
Yeah. Do you feel like there's enough conversation to be heard, or that's being heard about this day as in regards to like creating impact, or most of the stakeholders or people that are having these conversations are just doing it as a symbolic thing? Oh, 8th March is here, let's celebrate women.
I think it's a yes or no answer for me. So what's on my mind, I think, is also in line with the theme for this year's Women's Day, which is accelerate action. And to your question, for the yes part, I believe that Women's Day has now become sort of a ceremonial thing that every year people are just looking forward to celebrating this day. It's been conflated with issues to do with intimacy. So you see people expecting roses, gifts, cars on Women's Day. I don't know if that's a substantive celebration of Women's Day, but also you see there are people in workspaces always looking forward to having a day off because it's Women's Day, things like that. But also I noticed that there have been efforts to make Women's Day worthwhile. So it's not just about that day itself. For me, looking forward to 8th March, it's those steps that you take each and every day to recognize women as human beings and to also make sure that they, in fact, live equal and equitable lives just like their male counterparts. Of course, this goes back to the conversation of how history has always excluded women and insubordinated them. But also, in the work that we've been doing at Afya na Haki and the exposure that we now have to African narratives on women, we realize that women were not actually victims per se. But systems have come up, and today women are oppressed and, among other things, even had their voices and autonomy taken away from them.
When you said there's a lot to say, there's a lot to take action on in regards to this day, do you feel like that maybe this day has been, I don't know, sort of turned into a day to celebrate most of the low parts of women's lives than their actual successes? There's like a lot of wins women have been able to pull off in their roles or even just as agenda. I feel like lately it's become more of a pity party of like, oh, women are oppressed here, oh, women are, and of course it doesn't disregard the fact that yes, these things are still happening, but maybe do you think these days should be more about applauding women for the work they've done, the transformation they've done, the impact they've had?
Definitely, Joanne, definitely. I don't think that women are that weak that we always have to throw pity parties for them. But I also don't want to say that in the absolute sense, because there are also women that are struggling to, access the basic things that a human being should access. And for even the context of women, in the earlier question you alluded to my status on how I was speaking about menstrual hygiene and menstrual poverty. So you end up seeing that in those instances where women could be given an extra hand and some grace and would have been prioritized in programming, maybe we fall short in those areas. We still fall short in areas to do with sexual violence, gender-based violence. We still have women suffering with resources, Again, I will also talk about the issue of autonomy. Even for women who are more advantaged than others, we still have a challenge of autonomy where even laws, like people sit in parliament to, determine how a woman should act, how a woman should dress, how a woman should use her body, and things like that. So if I'm to answer your question directly, I think it's a balance. But I think we should also focus more on applauding women for how far we've come. We as human beings generally don't live single issue lives, but imagine for a woman the intersectionality, the complexities that she has to navigate, and the stereotypes that she has to, jump over. So we need to treat women with grace and thank them for passing through every single day, even with the challenges that they have to go through.
I hear you. You hear me, and I'm like, would you say this day is inclusive? Like, does it represent all women now that we have conversations and around rural women in like down deep in the villages who didn't go to school, the LGBTQ community, the disabled women, the women on the streets? Do you think this day allows space for all these kinds of women, or it's just corporate? What's the word? Corporate feminism.
Okay. I think there's a lot to be done. There's some being done in terms of including women in the conversations on Women's Day. But like I said, for me, from my experience, the rural women or people who are not up the corporate ladder, most of the talk is about intimacy. So maybe I'm going to cook for my wife. I'm going to buy for her a rose or something, but it's never that deep. Like, it's not a substantive conversation of, okay, now it's Women's Day, what have I done to make sure that a woman is independent and at par with a man. But also, I think the challenge that's also leading to the corporatization or elitism related to Women's Day is the fact that now most of the work that's being done is being done by civil society organizations, and this is part of their programming. It's part of the agendas of their funding partners, So sometimes the creativity or the context is taken out of these celebrations because someone wants to fulfill an activity that they promised that they would, do under their programs or projects that are funded by external persons. So there's still a lot left to be done, and don't even get me started about women living with disabilities. These have always been left out in the conversations. But like I said, there's some work that's being done, but there's still a lot more wanting. So we need to be intentional in having these conversations. And it shouldn't just be about wearing T-shirts, It should be about having substantive conversations. Go to these communities, talk to them, ask them, what do you need? Is the current system working for you? How can we make it better? Co-create with them solutions on this day to make it more substantive rather than a show on social media statuses.
Your responses are mind-blowing that I don't have that I don't have a comeback. I don't I'm supposed to have a comeback to keep this conversation going, but for some reason you just lay out all, and now I don't have any other angle to come at you. Where are these conversations really? I tend to nudge people's minds before I actually come to the conversation. So each time I'm sure each time for you as well, when you end up in spaces where you're talking about women's rights and their empowerment and feminism and all, there's always a lady or a man or anyone really with a different opinion about what now to maybe channel this into feminism, what modern feminism has become. One would argue that maybe we are at a point where we are contradicting ourselves as we fight for women's rights. So we keep having conversations around equality and how we all should get equal pay, but then the part where I'm sure you've had this go around on the whole 50-50 jazz of like, okay, if we're going for a date, do we split the bill? If we're living together in a household, do we split the bills as well? Who is paying the rent? Who is paying for the food? So men or some people still argue that if we're saying, okay, equality for all, why can't we do that everywhere? Why do we do it only when it best suits our interests?
Okay, so I'm going to have an unpopular opinion.
Yeah, so sure, this is the right space. This is the perfect space for unpopular opinions.
Okay, so I've definitely had that conversation, and I've many times refused to respond, but now I can't refuse to respond. So
yeah, we are here.
Yes. So now I will say that for me, it's not a question of equality; it's a question of equity. So for equality, I'll use I don't know if it was an image that made rounds on social media sometime back, maybe 2 or 3 years ago, where there was a fence and you had a short person, a relatively tall person, and a very tall person. And beyond the fence, soccer was being played. And now you expect all these people to be watching the soccer game. But you see, because the fence is now representing equality, the taller person is able to see everything clearly. And then the medium height person can see quite a bit of what's going on just to get a picture that, you know, there's soccer being played over the fence. But for this short person, they are not able to follow, like they can't see anything.
Okay.
So if you have the same bar and you expect people that are gifted differently in terms of height to be at the same par, then that's deception. But you see, for equity and in that image, what was done is a platform was created for each one of them. So for the shortest person, the platform was way higher. So that platform enabled them to have the same point of view as the taller person. And then the medium-heighted person also had a platform to their level, which made them see the same things that the tall person was seeing. So if you're talking about the conversation on 50-50, I think it might be a disservice to us, because you see, even in the corporate space where we work, we often see that men are paid more than women. So in such a context, you cannot tell me that now you want a woman to give you 50 and you also contribute 50, and yet your salary is higher. Someone will now ask me that, okay, what if a woman gets more money than the man? And then now you have to split a 50 by 50. I would answer to that question by saying that we shouldn't be having a one size fits all kind of strategy, because it may not, you know. Sometimes women who have made it to that point have had to break through so many barriers. Some of them are probably, you know, having families behind them. They have personal things that they may not tell you about. So I'm not going to tell you now, buy me sanitary towels. Or I will not tell you that, oh, we have a girls' night out and I have to contribute for my friends, you know, conversation. I know men also have that. But just to say that the contexts are different, and we need to treat this situation in terms of context, not just, you know, creating a uniform weighing scale or yardstick for people to follow. I don't know if I respond, but that's how I would answer it.
I think your analogy is genius. I think that's the first time I don't know. There's so much closure in there, and I think this is like my favorite thing about having these conversations. When my mind is blown by how people look at life, I think the analogy of the wall and different heights of people is a bit. If anyone has more questions about this, I think they're just refusing to get it, because that right there just makes the absolute difference as to why the whole 50-50 thing does not make sense.
Yeah.
You talked about women in the workplace, different salaries. Men are paid more, women are paid less by default, really. I want to say something around women choosing to pursue their careers, and then you're saying, oh, this is what society usually says, yeah, and I quote, they say, oh, she's prioritizing her career over trying to start a family. Yet when men decide to do that, it's oh, he's working hard. When they go all out for their jobs all the time, they're like, oh, he's working hard to provide for their family. Yet when women do it, it's sort of branded the wrong way. I wonder what you think about that. Like, why we're told the alternative, like, oh, you ugenda kubeera na kyeyombekedde, when will you have time for your husband, when will you get married? Yet when men do it, it's, oh, he's a hardworking man, he's doing all the most to work to provide for his family.
So again, I feel like that's a misguided stereotype.
Yeah.
And speaking of stereotypes, there are very many gender stereotypes. And again, Nacheyombekede is one that comes up. You know, I think patriarchy supports the subordination of women on very many fronts. And you see, actually, Women's Day came to be celebrated after women pushed back on inequitable labor labor terms of working, So at least as I did some reading, I realized that day became a commemoration because women were pushing back on unfair terms of employment. So one of the weapons that patriarchy uses to take women below the line that below what they should ideally be living at is economic disempowerment. Because you see, when you don't have money, when you are waiting for someone to give you life-saving commodities, you are dependent to them, and therefore you have no voice. And you see what employment is doing, and pursuing of career is doing, is it's empowering women and helping them find their voices. I can say now that I will not do ABCD because I know there are no consequences. At the end of the day, I have my own money. I can buy meals for myself. I can, pay for my accommodation and things like that. So at the workplace, definitely, even at a personal level. So I'm a mother, I have a child, but you see, sometimes I disqualify myself and, give in to these stereotypes by, there's a common phrase that mothers usually use, mom guilt. I should be taking care of my offspring, not working.
Okay.
But from where I stand, if I have a vision for my child, I should have the finances to push that vision. So in a way, I am also supporting the livelihood of my child, just like a man would. So I also want to talk about the fact that men and society tries to objectify women and their bodies. So you see that the comebacks that society always has for women who try to pursue their careers is, all this beauty will fade, and you won't have a man to go back to. You will not have anybody desiring to get intimate with you. But that's not what women are relegated to. Women can substantively contribute to society. Actually, I think last week I was on Instagram, and I had a clip where they said that on the African continent, actually, majority of the master's degrees are held by women. But also you see the resilience that women have. Like, you have to navigate so many obstacles for you to even get to the level where men are. And when you get to that level, you outdo yourself. So for me, my unpopular opinion is that society fears how much power women have. Yes, and that's why they try to, bring them down so that men can have their egos massaged, so that they can feel pompous, so that they keep you out of their spaces, and you don't have to show their weaknesses. Because if I can work an 8 to 5 job, go back home and take care of the family, cook a meal, while a man goes back home and just places his legs on a table, then I am superhuman. But let's do that before you ask anything. Or there's a conversation now that's linked to career women and getting help at home. So there's that conversation of house helps and nannies. And how someone is like, oh, yet all the house chores are being done by
maid,
by nannies. But of course, there's also a conversation that has to be had on how women treat nannies and all those things. But maybe that's a conversation for another day.
Aren't we our own enemies, really?
But you see, there's so many things linked in there. But if a woman can afford help, let's get that help. Maybe the question then would be is, how do you ensure that you get help and treat the person that is helping you in acceptable terms, because a house help is also employed. you know?
Yeah, right. I think there's like a silent, I don't want to say in a battle, even within us just as women, to find a balance between our traditional roles. Even as a gender, we are still also maybe contemplating between what's doable, because I think the hardest thing to do, even as any other person, is to go against society, like things you've seen, things like history. These are things women, where women didn't have to work. You had to, the moment you got pregnant, you had to sit home and take care of your children. And so now, when you say the conversation that needs to be had around how to treat this house help, yet in fact they're helping raise your child, you as, and they're also women. It's a whole other battle that's going in, of like, okay, you want to be a career woman, but at the same time you want to be a nurturing mother, and now you're probably torn between these two emotions.
Yeah. So you see, like I said, that women are always dealing with multiple issues, and
Mm,
there's no right or wrong answer. But I think it should be, in my line of work, we always say that there should be a human rights based approach to everything.
mm,
And human rights shouldn't be a universalized thing, it should be an issue of context, you know?
mm.
So,
Okay.
because what might apply to a white woman in the USA may not apply to a black woman in Uganda.
Yeah.
So,
Right.
like,
I,
for me, I am always careful to say that this should be the line or the road that each one of us takes, because you don't know the things that every individual is talking about. So even when I was coming to have this conversation with you, I was asking myself, do I even qualify to speak about this subject that we're speaking about today? And then I had
mm,
a yes or no answer, in my head. So I was saying yes because I'm qualified, because I'm a woman, and there's certain experiences that I have, like systemic challenges that every other woman would face. But
yeah.
also, no, because I cannot generalize my experiences to yours or for any other woman in the world for that matter, because we experience life differently. So,
Yeah.
again, I always emphasize the issue of context, the issue of diversity, the issue
Yeah.
of uniqueness. And
Mm,
the only way we can have meaningful conversation is if you identify an issue that touches a particular group of women, have
yeah.
them on board to share their experiences, because you may never have them. You may never understand things from their perspective.
Mm.
Yeah.
That's my chain of thought is like sent a whole different dimension, which is just making me sad. I wanted to talk about good things now. Let's talk about Women's Day. This, it feels like there's like systematic challenges here. I want to talk about the good side. Let's talk um accelerate action Women's Day. I want to talk about Women's Day. I was doing an interview about a week ago, and they were asking me how I would approach women empowerment today. And
Mm-hmm.
I want to ask you the same question. If you had to talk to a young woman who just got here, you're a teenager 2 years ago, and you just landed, you're 21, you're now a young woman. What
Mm-hmm.
would you say to them, and what is empowering them at this point? Because I feel like we are still riding on theories of like 19th century, I don't know, like 1900 Buganda agreement. And I feel like we need to have bigger, different conversations about what that should be today and what's applicable.
Yeah, so thank you for that question, or also that reflection. But
Mm,
again, I would hesitate to say this is the right thing to do,
mm,
because these young people, the Gen Zs, the Gen Alphas, have showed us new things
okay.
that they have been so resilient. They have led movements, they have led actions that we never imagined they would. But you see, ultimately, my reflection is on how history always repeats itself. And in this sense, for women, there is historical oppressions. I know you said we shouldn't talk about, we should focus on the good part now.
No.
But
It's
you
fine.
see,
Feel free, really. Feel free.
ultimately, we need to look at history and how it grants us, and then how we then move past that history.
Yeah.
So that points me to the fact that it's always a cliche saying that we need to stand on the shoulders of giants, because we don't have to make the same mistakes that people that lived earlier than us made.
Mm.
So I think that the starting point would be have a dream,
Okay.
and not dream a small. Whatever you think you can do on this earth, think it. And
Mm.
then when you have this dream as a young person, find people that are along the lines of what you're dreaming about, and engage. And I know these days things have changed. I know also in the past there were mentorships. There were singers talking about sexuality and how
Yeah.
navigate menstruation or marriage, or
Yeah.
even whatever thing that happened. If in the Amazon we had women who were warriors. You've watched Woman King. you know
Yeah. Yeah.
yes. So there are spaces that have continued from even African traditional society. They've just today transformed into some fancy names like mentorship circles and all of those. But you can find those and people that are like-minded and have conversations with them. You can change your dream at any point.
Mm.
But just to also caution, is it a caution? But also emphasize that so many women have lost their lives, so many women have lost their dignity, so many women have lost so many things to ensure that we have the freedom and liberty that we have today. So we should not let that go in vain. At least it should be to some good. So
Yeah.
you should not disqualify yourself. Yes, dream as big as you can, fight all these barriers. History has proved that women are fighters. So whatever
Mm.
it is, fight and come out on top.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I if so, this is just to nudge your man. This is what I had to say when they asked me. I They sort of centered it around the challenges that women still face today. To me, are they not empowered enough? Like,
Mm-hmm.
are they being told the wrong things? And I think then it was yeah, like you said, the saying as the sexual reproductive health, your sexuality, how to please a man, how to nurture, take care of a man. And then now with feminism all over the place and now the internet, like you say, Gen Z's alpha, there's like an overload of information on where to go, what path to take, what dream to choose. And I think women should do more of finding themselves. Like you said, yeah, like find who you are before you attach to someone else, which I think um I don't want to say it's default. I don't know if it is default for us to eventually end up becoming mothers and wives. But I think the best way at empowerment today is to encourage a lot of young women to just find who they are before they're a mom or before you're a wife. Because when we talk about issues of like gender-based violence, domestic violence, all these issues that sort of limit women today, it all comes from a point of not knowing better. I remember someone saying, one would say, okay, education. I'm sure you've seen women who are educated still be limited by these issues, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I think it's the whole, hey, first forge your way around life on your own and like believe in yourself that you're strong enough to to make something of yourself without having to attach to someone else. Because I've had conversations with different people. I talk to a lot of people, and then there was this scenario that I was sharing with my friend, and I'm like, so we go out, and then have you been out like in the nightlife and all? I'm sure you have,
Mm-hmm.
right? Yeah, yeah. So
Yeah.
there's usually men trying to, like, throw lines at you, hi, hi, hi. So this one time the friend tells me, um, if that guy is not giving you money, do not give him your attention. And then now I'm like, okay, how much money are we talking here for him to get my attention? So um the the colleague says about 500K. And then so
Mm-hmm.
I'm thinking, now in my opinion, I'm like, okay, are you saying my attention is worth 500K? Is and that is the reason as to why we women, you've heard of those lines like, get money from those men as a way of like proving your value. Is that because we don't know how easy or how hard it is to make money? Or I don't know. Share, please tell me where your mind is going, because I'm like, is it because we don't know what it takes to to pay your own rent, that you think because a man is paying your rent it makes him what, your savior? Is it because we are naive, and like our generation today, the Gen Zs are like completely naive? A guy must give you, if he likes you, he's going to give you money. That's the bar right now. He doesn't have to write love letters like men back in the days used to do. He doesn't have to. He just has to give you money. And by the way, these men are empowered enough to know how to make money. So that's
Mm-hmm.
why it's even easy for them to splash it around and just throw 500K, 1 million at you. And because they know it works, it always works. They throw money at you. They don't even have to know your favorite color, or to hear your deepest secrets about all your opinions. They just have to throw money at you. So and for me, that whole scenario of that night, I kept thinking about it, and I'm like, this is what women empowerment should be about. You talk to someone because you want to talk to them, not because they are throwing money at you.
So, Joanna, I will agree with you and I'll also disagree with you. And my
Okay.
disagreement is not something that I have thought about prior to this call, but I
Mm,
was just reflecting while you spoke.
mm.
So, let's go to the negative because I'm sure that's where you're interested at this point. So,
No, give me both ends, really. Give me both sides.
okay, let me start with this new thought that I have had
Mm-hmm,
before I lose it.
mm-hmm,
So, I'm trying to think about the price and monetization of your attention
mm.
as some form of activism. I don't know if I am understanding activism properly in this context, but I am trying to look at it as saying that there's a price to pay for all the goodness and the conversations that you want to have with me.
Okay.
So if you really do need my attention,
Should that
you
should
should show
that be
me that it is.
monetary?
So monetary might be also something controversial to have to discuss about. But you see, if one of your friends thinks that for her to give a man attention, she needs money, then that's on her, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But for you, if your attention is not worth 500,000, then that should not be imposed on you.
Okay.
So it goes back to autonomy. If I feel like I need to be paid for my time to have conversation,
Mm-hmm.
maybe that's
Mm-hmm.
it, you know. But the challenge again is if that in a way leads to a silencing of your voice. So like you can't speak freely about the things that you want because you've been given harsh money in
Yeah.
this context.
Yeah.
So women should be taught to know the difference of
Between.
this money. Yes, this money is a token in exchange for your silence.
Mm-hmm.
Or it's even just a pleasurable game for you to play to say that, you need to pay for my services of
You see,
helping through your boring day.
no, seriously, I think money is messed up like that. There's value in things, there's value in time, in privacy, in access. But when it comes to money was, I think, by default supposed to be for product or service. I pay for transport, I pay for food, you pay for water. When it comes to like actual human interaction, it when you say silencing someone, I think silencing is a kind word. The moment
Mhm.
men know that they can pay or buy for access to you, I promise you, from that point it goes downwards. It does not go any way higher. That's what I'm saying. There's value in life and time and access and respect and dignity. But the moment you reduce it to money, because I you see, I am a very broke person, but I am one of the people who believe money can be made. Like, because I've had a job before, I've made money, and that's why I'm saying you cannot convince me that what, because like you said, men make money, men are able to make and spend money way easier than we are. So when it comes down to, oh, I'll send her, I don't know, 200K so she can come and see me, then you're saving him the hard work of what it actually takes for them to get your attention, because he knows. And I've seen those, like, they don't have the energy, or the not the energy, they don't have the guts to stand up
Mm.
on their 2 feet and say, hi Lenny, I think you're a pretty girl, or I think you're an amazing person, or I think you're very blah blah blah, and I would like to. But then the money gives them an easy way at it, like, I'll just send her 100K and she'll reply my messages. You get?
But you see, Joanne,
Hmm.
this money thing is not a new thing. It's just that now today there is something tangible. There's fiat, there's paper, there's gold
Yeah.
that you can give
Yeah.
someone. But you see, and that's the problem that we're trying to address. It should be the roots, not the branches. Since time immemorial, there has been a sort of barter trade in regards to women, their bodies, and whatever it is that they do in life.
Mm.
The only difference now is that it's the woman asking for the money. But you
Okay.
see, in history, the woman was nowhere even in this conversation. Some old man is going to show up and say, I want to pluck that flower in your garden. They want your daughter.
Yeah.
But the daughter is nowhere in the conversation. I do not know this man. And before you know it, they're telling you, pack up and follow this man. You know his wife, you know?
Okay. So is
So I
is
think
that
what has been removed now, Joanne, is the
yeah?
intermediary.
Okay. I hear you. So I want you to say yes or no. Is that is that the right thing to do? As much as it's been normalized now, like even men have been guilt tripped into the whole. If you like me, you have to give me some money.
Joanne, unfortunately, I'm not going to tell you yes or no. I'm not going to tell you yes or no, because even this conversation has been debated in the courts of Uganda. In Mufumi, is it Mifumi case, where they were discussing about bride price,
Yeah.
and they're saying bride price is not essentially saying we are buying this woman, but you see, it can be a token of appreciation. Okay,
Yeah.
Joanna,
Yeah.
again, Pisa, she grew up so well for all the things that you have done to make her this kind of woman. We appreciate you, you
Mm.
know. So some of these things are delicate, and again, it's a risk we run in universalizing concepts and
Yeah.
making sure that we have a one size fits all remedy for everyone. Like I said, in England, what will happen is different from what will happen in Africa. So in
Yeah.
England, like bride price might be looked at, as savagery, as backwardness,
Yeah.
yeah. But
Right.
in Africa, it's maybe something to do with celebration. This
Mm.
woman is a force to reckon with. Do you know how much change she is going to cause in the family that she's going to? She's well empowered and equipped, So I don't know, like Joanne, like I said, so many times I want to deal with context. It's difficult to say yes or no because
Yeah. I
very
I
different
get.
circumstances affect different things.
I get where you're coming from. Hmm, I have a bunch of rants, but I think if we are to change the trajectory of how an empowered woman looks like today, we need to have bigger conversations, look at bigger rewards of this life than just being a hot chick who has, I don't know, the beautiful body, and otherwise, because this eventually, you see how, have you had the lines of men aged like fine wine, yet for women, it's the, by the time you're 30, your body is already, now they're telling you, oh, you need to have a kid because you know you're running out of time. But I think, by the way, do you think that's true, or you have a different approach at that?
I honestly will say that women are wiser and more perfect when they grow up. But you see, some of these are physiological issues of biology, of
Oh yeah.
science, and you see
Yeah.
they are beyond you as a human being. But
Mm,
then again, you bring me to the conversation of now women. There's cosmetology.
mm,
There's plastic surgery. If you don't
mm.
like this part, you can enhance it this way. And also there's a stream of conversations on that. And there are people who will say you should have the right to modify your body in a way
Mm,
that pleases you. And of course there's a school of thought that says you should be the way God created you and all of that. And these are conversations that are very very fraught with conspiracy
mm.
theories and contradictions. But I think
Oh,
to your question directly, it's a physiological issue,
issue, yeah.
and people are different. There are genes in play. There's
Yeah,
there's
oh
there's
yeah, I've seen that
genetics,
as well. I know.
So I don't know how you reduce such a big issue of
Mm,
competence or
to-
even the physical appearance of
yeah,
women, to
okay.
some form of objectification and what value you should attach to them just based on how fast they age.
Yeah. In my opinion, to go with like the majority stats and science and history, and how we've seen these patterns happen century after century, what I would say to, as we celebrate this day for women, is that with the knowledge that I have as of today, this is what I would tell my younger self. Hey,
Mm,
if you can find yourself as early as you can, just find a way of thugging it out, and find yourself once you're out of your parents' house before you jump into another man's house. If you have the privilege to go to school and access education, make huge use of it. End up in the right spaces. Don't spend the best years of your life with the wrong people, because yeah, as much as there's science, there's plastic surgery, there's genes, at the end of the day, I feel like naturally we're all inclined to, yeah, while you've made the money, while you have the job. In my experience, I feel like at the end of the day, I've still been inclined to, like, I don't know, find companionship, find someone, start a family. And eventually that has to come, I think, for a lot of women. But for you to, like, you see the women we look at in society and really admire, I think they've done a good job at finding themselves early enough to capitalize on maybe like their careers, and then maybe come to the motherhood part, so that you're able to find a balance between both. And that eventually comes with like finding your value, not putting a price to, like, okay, if you want to talk to me, because eventually while you say all these things, you're sort of like losing sight of what's really important here. And usually guys that I've seen, men that are usually willing to pay for such, are usually the ratchet men. Not to make the conversation about men, but yeah, for any young woman that's starting out 21, 22, I'd tell you to find yourself. So this is the time I come to you, Lenny. What would you tell the younger version of yourself as a young woman as we wrap up?
I think the biggest question is finding yourself, and it
Mm,
doesn't matter where you stand in life. And I like the fact that you've spoken about privilege.
yeah.
So, of course, there's value in keeping girls in school and ensuring that they have access to opportunities like men do. And But also there are people who have not been privileged enough to go through education. They've ended up in marriage. But you
Yeah.
see, even in that marriage, you can find yourself. If you are good at baking, while you're in the marriage, you can build that skill that you have. So it doesn't matter where you are in life, whatever purpose you end up discovering in that situation, you should
Yeah.
be very audacious to endeavor that you see it to the end. And it doesn't have to be that you are the best lawyer.
Yeah.
It might be that you're gifted in caregiving, and then you can probably start a center where you can support other women that are gifted differently in that area.
Mm.
So it's just being audacious and fearless. But I also feel like society should do more than, because you see, you can have a dream and purpose and audacity, but the systems are disenabling.
Yeah.
So we should be able as society, but even as individuals, to support younger women who have dreams that they want to see to fruition.
Mm.
You may not have the money to give them, but you might have your experience to empower them.
True. True.
You can use your voice, Joanne. You can use these podcasts to change minds and hearts. You can write if you're a writer. You can write poetry. You can paint art. There's so much you can do.
Right.
There's a book that I've been reading. It's a self-help book. I
Mm.
think it's called Girl Don't Apologize or something like that, where the author says that we always are at risk of falling in the pits of comparison.
Mm.
Of you're looking at someone's middle and comparing it to your beginning.
Okay.
There's a time I was put on a panel about 2 years ago, and I froze. I knew what I wanted to say, but I like,
Completely fine.
my voice could not come out. And then the panels went on rounds. They came back to me and I couldn't still say anything. Like, I was blank because I don't know why. But eventually I picked up my trail of thought and I spoke. And on that day, one of my colleagues, he's called Derek. I don't know if he will hear this. Derek called me and told me, "You're a very brilliant speaker." I think today it was just nerves. I think it was just nerves. It was at the break before we resumed the next session. It was just nerves. I think you should not overthink it. You already know what you want to talk about. Voila. When I went back,
You blew it out.
the rest is history. And from that day, I told myself that I would not disqualify myself. So whenever I am going to speak, I definitely feel fearful and I feel like I don't deserve this platform. But then I'm like, what do I have to lose? Just go in scared and
Yeah.
you'll find.
So much again for the girls to pick up. Like, whew, I like brilliant girls, and I think that's how you and I have forged our friendship. I really like brilliant girls. Like, oh my god.
Same, Joanne. I don't know. I don't know, but I'm so grateful for you and for this podcast. And you're very brave. Like, you're doing
Hmm.
this at your age. It's amazing. I just hope for the best for you. I hope you can get bigger and better people to speak to.
Thank you, thank you. Fingers crossed. Sky's the limit. Sky's the limit.
It's your point of view. It's not your limit. You can go beyond even all these
Beyond the limit.
planets.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm always like I don't like. I mean, where I usually say to girls like you already, it's a given that you're a girl and you're pretty and you have to do more than that, because all these girls can do the things you're doing. They're pretty. They're da 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 da. You have to be more than just a pretty girl. So That's usually like my mantra to like gas me up. This is the time you introduce yourself. Maybe tell us a thing or two about who you are, and then tell us something that we possibly wouldn't believe about you. Like, hi, I'm Joanne, and a lot of people don't think or wouldn't believe that I can cook.
Okay. Hi, I am Sharon Pamela Lenny. I am a woman very qualified to speak on this topic. I am a mother, and probably that's the point where people are going to be like, those who have known me before may be raising their eyebrows and saying, okay, when did you become a mother? But yes, I am a mother of a handsome boy. And then I am an artist, not in the sense that I would paint a beautiful picture on canvas, but I use my imagination. I use my imagination and hatch very, very successful plans. But also, I am a fanatic of art, everything art, painting, music, poetry. Showing up, I also express myself through art and fashion and all of that. I think when you meet me and I haven't spoken to you, you would never know I'm a lawyer.
Right. No, that I get. Oh no, that's written all over your face, please. No, I think that's what you should have said. Like, hi, I'm Sharon Lenny. I am a lawyer. That would have added up to everything we just talked about here. No, but I think the art does. For me, it makes sense. Honestly, when you mentioned that you were, I was like, oh, okay. I didn't see that coming, so I think it makes sense. Lenny, thank you so much for taking the time to do this. I appreciate it.
Thank you again for giving me the platform to speak.
Pleasure is mine.